Upwards of 1 in 4 Americans experience chronic pain, and considering that this pain is a contributing factor to a decrease in quality of life, as well as lost productivity, it's no question that pain is an important topic for neuroscientists to better understand. Furthermore, we've been riding the third wave of the opioid epidemic for nearly a decade now. Annually, tens of thousands of overdose-related deaths involve fentanyl or some other synthetic opioid. And while some of these are recreational drug users, some of these users found their drug in search of a relief of their pain. I'm Austin Lim, a neuroscience professor who got his PhD from the University of Chicago. But you're not here to learn about me, you're here to learn about why neuroscience has such a difficult time understanding and studying pain. Here are 3 reasons. First of all, pain is subjective. If you've ever gone to the clinic where your principal complaint is pain, you might be asked to rate how severe your pain is on a scale from 1 to 10. A pair of researchers actually developed a spectrum of faces, which allows pediatric patients and even people who don't speak English to communicate the extent of their pain. You know, the subjectivity of a sensory experience is unsurprising. Just think about foods. 3 people could eat the same meal. One of them would complain that it's bland and flavorless. A second might douse their food in a quantity of salt better measured in grams. And the third person, that perfect Goldilocks, would say, this is excellent the way it is. Genetic, epigenetic, and environmental influences all determine the extent of our sensory experience, and pain is no exception. One fascinating example of this is among natural redheads, who have a very specific type of the melanocortin-1 receptor. These people often have higher pain thresholds and they respond to opioids differently than others. All of this means that if you took 3 different patients into the clinic, all of whom had the same type of pain to the same degree, which they won't, they're all going to report different numbers and point to different faces. And that's messy. Secondly, there's no biomarker for pain. A biomarker is something that can be easily measured and quantified. And some conditions have a very clear biomarker. Consider A1C. In diabetes, a person has some kind of deficiency in blood sugar processing. The excess amount of sugar in their blood then binds to hemoglobin. And in the A1C test, a small sample of blood is drawn and processed. According to clinical standards, an A1C level greater than 6.5 indicates there's some kind of blood sugar processing deficit, which could indicate diabetes. Now, biomarkers aren't necessarily all blood tests. For instance, salivary levels of cortisol can help diagnose stress disorders. Urine samples can be useful for diagnosing kidney or bladder issues. Now, regardless of the nature of the test, there's still some definitive, quantifiable output that can help provide information to the clinicians. The same can't be said about pain. If a pain biomarker did exist, it would eliminate all of the issues related to the subjective nature of that experience. Now, there have been some attempts to develop a pain biomarker, mostly by using brain imaging. Now, some studies have found that in certain chronic pain conditions, there are decreases in the volume of certain brain structures, such as the anterior cingulate cortex and the insular cortex. The pain conditions that result in this type of volume change vary quite a bit between lower back pain, osteoarthritis, complex regional pain syndrome, and even migraine. Now, even though those results are real, it looks like they're only about 85% accurate, and a test with low specificity isn't a great test. And third, you can't just do away with all pain. There's a very important distinction between acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain can be thought of as a warning light. It tells your body that some part of you is being injured. And this is critically important. You need to keep this kind of pain intact. People who don't experience pain, sometimes in a condition called congenital insensitivity to pain, they live dramatically shorter lives. Their warning lights just don't function. And in chronic pain, the type of pain you're trying to treat, it doesn't serve any protective mechanism. It only really just decreases quality of life. The problem is that both acute pain and chronic pain converge on a very similar pathway of communication. And in chronic pain, there's some kind of change to the C fibers, maybe a difference in excitability or some other cellular mechanism. But the problem is you just can't get rid of or block all pain signaling. A person still needs to keep their acute pain sense intact. And this is really tricky to do because they share a lot of similar circuitry. And I hope that brief summary of the difficulties with pain helps you understand the process and why science is a little bit slower in this respect. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you want to learn more about pain, I write a lot about it in my new book, Horror on the Brain: The Neuroscience Behind Science Fiction. In fact, I actually dedicate an entire chapter to talking about pain and some of the similar issues that I've brought up in this video. And within, you'll see some interesting discussions about what happens when the pain circuitry doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Pick up this book at your local bookstore. Thanks a bunch. I hope you consider subscribing. I talk a lot about neuroscience on this channel. Have a great rest of your day.